So today, as I'm recording this, it's June 19th, 2023, aka it's Juneteenth. So if you're celebrating it, I guess happy Juneteenth. It's still new, so I feel like most people aren't like privy to it as they might be about other holidays. But if this is something that you partake in, happy Juneteenth. And this is how I started my Juneteenth. I saw a tweet from Candace Owens. We all know Candace Owens. She tweeted out, Juneteenth is still ghetto and made up. Hope everyone enjoys it. And I'm 100% sure she knew like the reception she was going to get. People calling her a coon and telling her that she hates herself and she hates black people and all of these other things. Now, before I go any further, I will say I feel like the vast majority of holidays are made up. So people kept pointing that out. I feel like I know where she was coming from, but like holidays are made up. Celebrate them, don't celebrate them, to each his own. It is what it is. But I do kind of want to get at the nuance of what she's talking about here, at least what I think she's talking about, because this is what I'm talking about. Right? I'm not Candace Owens, so I don't know her like direct personal feelings about Juneteenth, but this is what I believe them to be. Primarily, it's because it highlights the problems that I have with it. Now, before I say anything, disclaimer, I don't hate myself, so we don't have to go down that road. I don't hate black people, so we don't have to go down that road. I'm not trying to please the white man, so we don't have to go down that road. Just because a black person thinks outside the box, or it might be a little unorthodox, it does not mean that they have to be any of those things or any of those things are occurring. It's just a person thinking outside the box who just so happens to be black. So let's just go with that. Now, on to my problem with Juneteenth and what I believe this tweet was trying to get at. At least me personally, I don't inherently have a problem with Juneteenth. The actual day, the significance of it is important. There's clearly no denying that this country has a stained history when it comes to things like slavery. And although the details of that are not told in full at school, children are given a very surface level education on what actually went down during that time, and it's essentially painted out, and I think in a purposeful way, to make it seem like this was a white person initiative exclusively, right? No black people interfering. There were no black slave owners, because I never was taught about black slave owners when I was in school, even though they existed. It's just white people. All the problems that we have, all the issues of racism, all of the socioeconomic issues, all of the cultural issues, it's all white people's fault. That's kind of what we were taught, whether it was directly or indirectly. But the reality is that slavery still occurred, and the vast majority of slavery within the United States was white slave owners and black slaves. So it is an important moment in history when these slaves are like freed, right? As free as they could be at the time, right? Good old 1865, right? That's like the inception of what we now call Juneteenth. But therein lies my problem, right? Is the Emancipation Proclamation, the slaves being freed, people finding out about it, all of that took place in 1865. When was Juneteenth implemented as a federal holiday? 2021. That is about 156 years after the first quote unquote Juneteenth occurred. After slaves were freed, it took this country 156 years to implement it as a holiday. You want to know when the first quote unquote 4th of July was celebrated? 1777. America gained its independence from Great Britain in 1776. So it took them 1 year to commemorate, to celebrate the country's freedom. And in the late 1870s, Independence Day was officially marked as a federal holiday. So when I look at Juneteenth, I've never really heard of any big celebration for it before recently. And it took almost twice the amount of time for it to be considered a federal holiday compared to Independence Day. Now, why do I say this, right? It's like some people will probably say, well, I mean, we have it now, so who cares? That's the problem, right? Is clearly this wasn't important enough to be implemented as a holiday the previous 156 years before 2021. So in steps an administration, the Biden administration, who is putting a spotlight on diversity and inclusion, which, just let me tell you, it's not a good thing, right? Let me just get black people in these spaces. It doesn't matter if they're good. It doesn't matter if they're competent. It doesn't matter if they're mentally sane.
I went home one day and I said, well, why are conservatives bad, Mommy? Because I thought we were supposed to conserve things.
Let me just get them in these spaces to show that I'm a old white dude who loves black people and I'm not racist like my political opponents and all this stuff like that. And on top of that, I got all these black people asking me for reparations and asking me for X and Y and Z. Some of them are actually asking me to help fund their neighborhoods and their schools in hopes of ending this cycle of black kids growing up in poor environments and then becoming products of their environments, then going out into the world. And then if they manage to live past the age of 21, there's a strong chance that by the choices that they make, that they will land in jail, right? And that's a general statement, but it's a scenario that occurs too often. But I mentioned this before. Us as black people, and once again, this is a general statement, us as black people are among the more angry group of people in this country and among the least patriotic. Yet it is so easy to please us with the smallest stuff. It's so easy to hold black people over. Talked about it before. All you got to do to hold some black people over is just change the Little Mermaid from a white girl to a black girl. Oh my goodness. You think that the black community just got elevated on a socioeconomic basis, right? With the reception that people get from seeing a white girl be replaced by a black girl. That's what it takes to please us. It's so freaking easy. So all this man had to do was sign into law 156 years later that Juneteenth will now be recognized as a holiday. And you got black people just jumping for joy. This is amazing. Oh my gosh, this is great. Now, I'm all about personal responsibility, right? If you're trashing your neighborhood, if you're not putting your money in the right spots or whatnot, 9 times out of 10, that's on you, right? That's a you decision that's possibly derailing your life, but it is also important that you should be able to rely on your government when stuff as a whole is not working out well. And it's clear that the black community has been derailed before it really got a fair opportunity to make something of itself and has been trying to play catch up ever since. That's when the government should come in to help, not impose their will, but to help. But you want to know what you're not going to do? You're not going to put pressure on your elected officials. You're not going to ask your government for help. Why? Oh, they gave us Juneteenth. So we're good for the next 1.5 to 2 years. We're not going to ask for anything because we're satisfied. So although I think it's an important occasion, I think it's an important moment in history, I didn't necessarily care for it to be deemed a national holiday, or I didn't care for the theatrics of it, the exposure that it got, the posts that they make as if they're doing us some favor. Joe Biden posted a tweet on his Twitter account on Juneteenth saying, "This Juneteenth, we remember that the promise of America is that we're all created equal. And my promise to you is that I'll never walk away from that. Let's move forward together." He attached a video to it. Look at the opening of the video.
This is the pen that President Biden used to sign Juneteenth into law.
And from the pulpit of Ebenezer, from the bridge of Selma, in front of the graduating class at Howard, we've prayed, we've marched, we've celebrated. Folks, my message on these occasions and on this Juneteenth day is we got to go forward. We have to go forward together.
God bless the lady, but she's so fascinated by the pen that this man used to sign Juneteenth into law. The pen. A pen wins us over. Guess what? The economic status of the black community is still the same. The health, the educational status of the black community is still the same. All of the problems that we still deal with, that we either need to work at ourselves and or in conjunction with the government, they're still the same. And Juneteenth didn't change that. Diversity and inclusion, honestly doesn't mean a damn thing to me because it doesn't yield results. It doesn't yield progress. Representation is cool, but up to a certain point, like, things need to start happening. And you signing Juneteenth into law didn't elevate the status of the black community. No, it just gave a lot of black people something to focus on, right? Like a chew toy. That's kind of what it did. And trust and believe, the only comparison I'm making is between the holiday and the chew toy. We now have something to occupy ourselves with. That way that we're not focused on all of the problems in this community that we need to address. No, we're just over here playing with our little Juneteenth toy. And it might sound harsh, but it's true. I talked about this before, but they were talking about putting Rosa Parks on the $20 bill. Fantastic. But you ask some black people and they thought that, I mean, oh my gosh, the $20 bill with Rosa Parks on it is just the greatest thing ever. To my knowledge, that $20 bill is still going to equate to $20. Like I said, representation. Cool. That's fine. But all the theatrics behind it, it doesn't elevate anybody in this community at all. You want to know who it does elevate? The President of the United States, who, newsflash, is a white man. Now, I don't really care that he's a white man, but of all the people who's being elevated by this, it is him. You see in this video, he's making it his mission to be seen with as many black people as possible, to give speeches at as many black colleges as possible, to go to black churches if he does that on a regular basis. Not once in this video or in anything that he has done did he talk about his plans to improve the quality and the conditions of black communities. And guess what? People just eat it up. I don't inherently have an issue with the day or the occasion itself, but it's all of the theatrics behind it. And guess who it elevates? It elevates Joe Biden. So if you were looking for some improvement for black people, well, guess what? It's not happening, and you're definitely not getting any assistance in that regard from the government because they're so worried about the optics and how black people make them look on the big stage. You walk around with a bunch of black people and it makes it look like you're saving these defenseless victims. You can walk around with your chest out. Why? Because you signed Juneteenth into law. You made it a holiday. Look, now we're fascinated about a pen. That's what it is. We get to be excited about the pen that Joe Biden used to sign Juneteenth into law. So I genuinely don't know if Candace Owens was going there with that, but that's my feelings on it. It's cool. But this happens time and time again, is these bones will be thrown to black people to keep them occupied. And for a group of people who most likely detest this country more than any other group in this country, it is incredible how easily we are won over by the smallest stuff that does absolutely nothing to benefit this community whatsoever. Happy Juneteenth, everybody.